Welcome to Tip Top Grow Up Your Business with Metronomics. Join me, Shannon Byrne Susko, and Metronomics certified coach, Jed Roberts.
We'll be talking to business thought leaders, entrepreneurs, CEOs, and business team coaches who have all taken the journey to grow up their businesses to their tip top.
We'll be sharing strategies, systems, stories, and how you can grow your company up at the speed you want.
If you're searching for your path to the tip top and feel your time is running out, then this podcast is for you.
Welcome back, everyone, to Tip Top Grow Your Business with Metronomics. I'm your host, Shannon Susko, CEO, founder, creator, coaching lots of great high growth companies. Today, I'm joined by someone who I've known a long time, who has shaped the thinking of leaders around scaling companies, building leadership partnerships. And I think that's really, really important. But most important, creating clarity. Clarity is my favorite word. He's a former COO of 1-800-GOT-JUNK, the founder of the COO Alliance, which I send a ton of COOs to that I work with. My own COO is in your alliance, so we're so grateful for that. And the author of 6 best-selling books, right, including Vivid Vision, Second in Command, and one of my favorite was Double Double. Cameron Herold is known globally as the CEO Whisperer, and I love that. Today, he's sharing how to build the right partnership between CEO and COOs. Critical, absolutely critical. How to align your team using what, we've been calling that jigsaw puzzle of business. So most people know you for building 1-800-GOT-JUNK. It was a while ago. We're all sort of evolving and growing. Give us a little grounding on 1-800-GOT-JUNK and some of the things there that really have, drive your focus today, because I know that was a big part of, the learning and all those pieces.
Well, and amazingly, that was actually the 4th company that I'd built. So I opened the West Coast of the United States for college pro painters, hired 220 people in 12 months. Then I was a co-founder of the franchising group for Boyd Auto Body and Glass, which became Gerber Auto Collision. It's now the largest collision repair chain in the world. Then I was president of a private currency company that we built and sold. And then I did Got Junk. It was a while ago. That was 18 years ago. I left 1-800-GOT-JUNK. So why I got known from that Got Junk story?
Yeah.
Well, in addition to all that growth that had happened before, I understood how to build culture and how to create a business that was a little more than a business and a little bit less than a cult. I got known for a lot of the leadership development of people, because to grow it, we doubled the revenue of the company 6 years in a row. To go through that kind of hyper growth, you would either be replacing people constantly or needing to grow the skill sets of those people. I got really well known for that. And then I guess past that, I just had a really good self-promotion machine. So I left Got Junk the day that Facebook was starting, and I could start talking about all my speaking events and books around the world. So I don't know if I'm that good or I just got lucky with the ride.
I don't know. I think it's probably the former. I don't think it's lucky on the ride. So with all of that, because that's an incredible experience, right? Each one builds on the next, builds on the next. What's driving you today? What's the focus in your work today? What's the problem you're most passionate about solving for leaders?
Well, I think my core purpose, and Simon Sinek, popularized that with the whole book, Start With Why. He was on our board of advisors at 1-800-GOT-JUNK 5 years before he wrote the book. Right. So I had a lot of time with Simon where we would sit and talk about why I do what I do. And we realized my core purpose was to help entrepreneurs make their vision come true. And that's been my stated core purpose for 20 plus years now. So my speaking events help entrepreneurs, my books help entrepreneurs, my Invest in Your Leaders course helps entrepreneurs, my coaching, my COO Alliance, where I'm growing the skills of their people, everything's aligned with that. So I think that's really why I'm doing what I do. Is I often see, probably very much like you, we see these entrepreneurs working really hard, and I almost see them like a fly banging their head on the window, and they're going to keep banging their head on the window, but they end up dead on the windowsill. And I'm really trying to help them see that there's a shortcut and maybe a path of least resistance, right?
Love that. Now, you wrote 6 books. I had to go look that up, like 6 books. It's awesome. Which ones even today, do you still refer the most to, that people take the most away to, that you really use in your work?
Well, I got really lucky that my content is probably never going to expire. AI
Yeah.
can't replace leadership
Yeah.
development,
No.
right? AI can't replace people skills. All that, like, thankfully, I wasn't in a niche like marketing, because I think
Yeah.
one chapter of Double Double is probably not worth reading. It was a chapter on technology that I wrote 15 years ago. You can kind of toss that one aside. But Vivid Vision has become very well known globally. It's been read now in about 25 countries, 1,200 reviews on Amazon. So Vivid Vision is really good. I think my book, The Second in Command, is probably my strongest content, because it was a niche
Yeah.
that had never really been written about. The people
Yeah.
had touched
Yeah.
on little bits of it, but that content I think is very, very strong. And then, the others are all really good. Meeting Suck, Free PR, The
Oh,
Miracle
yeah.
Morning for Entrepreneurs. They're all good content, but I'd say that's my best.
Yeah, well, I think that, even from my own perspective, both as CEO and coaching CEOs, we pull on this content, right? For one of the biggest things we use it for is around like painting the picture. We will use it 10 years out, we'll use it 3 years out for the three hag and for, our
Yep,
10 to 30 year. Can you talk a little bit more around sort of
sure.
vivid vision and give people who maybe don't know that book and know
Yeah.
that view a little bit more about it? Because I think it's so powerful.
So the vivid vision is something that I learned from an Olympic coach back in 1998. I was a part of the Entrepreneurs Organization. I was running a private currency business just after Boyd Auto Body, and it was a YEO event, now called EO. They invited
Yeah.
120 EO members in Vancouver to go to the lunch, and only about 20 of us went. And we were exposed to how high performance athletes use visualization in sport. And the
Yeah.
coach showed us how to take it into the business world. And we used a case study of home builders that get the homeowner to describe what the home's going to look like, so the contractor can create the plans. And if you hand the blueprints to the employees, the workers can make the home come true without ever speaking to the homeowner. That analogy really worked for us. So I went back to the private currency business. Brian actually attended from 1-800 Got Junk. He went back into it was called the Rubbish Boys at the time.
Yeah.
Another
Yeah.
friend of ours, Dan, went back into his company, Pad Tech, and we all wrote these painted pictures or vivid visions for our businesses. And then when I ended up joining Brian at 1-800 Got Junk a few years later, he showed me his painted picture, what I now call the vivid vision. He gave me a
Yes.
2-page description of what his company looked like, act like, and felt like in 2003. I got
Right.
really excited about it and started to show him how to make it come true. And he's like, I don't even know how to do what you're talking about. Can you come and do that with us? And that
That's
was where the
so
magic
good.
met. Was I saw what he wanted,
Yeah.
I could create the plans, and then we just kind
Yeah.
of went from there. So that was where I really felt it starting to work, and then, yeah, I started writing about it, speaking about it, and kinda
Yeah,
took it from
because
there.
like I included that piece around how to paint the picture
Mhm.
in, you know, for sure for the BHAG side of it, that 10, but I know it's the
Yeah,
three, and it lines up so nicely.
I'll walk you through why the 3 actually makes sense. And the term painted picture and vivid vision, the reason I switched the terminology from painted picture over to vivid vision was I started getting a lot of entrepreneurs globally that were confused, and they
Yeah.
thought that a painted picture was like a vision board. John
Yeah.
Asheroff, a friend of mine, created
Yeah.
the concept of
Yeah.
the vision boards and popularized it in the movie The Secret. But a picture says a
Yes.
thousand words. And
Yeah.
if people start showing pictures of something, people can
The
misinterpret what
story's
that
not
picture
there.
is,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
could be looking at a picture of you, and maybe it's about a coffee cup on the bookshelf, or the books in the bookshelf, or or the black t-shirt that you're wearing. I don't know what the
Yes.
picture really is, but the written word is very specific. So that vivid vision, and then we looked at the timeline. People used to talk about 5-year plans. Well, 5-year plans, everything
Yeah.
has changed. Now everything's changed in 6 months, let alone 5 years. 5 years was too far out that you kind of fall over, and a
Yeah.
1-year vision was too similar to what today looked like that it didn't get exciting enough. Crafting a really long description of a 20 or a 30-year BHAG, I think, is almost pointless in a way. Maybe a paragraph suffices,
Yeah,
but
that's why we do a picture. That's why we actually do a picture and then get really specific in that three
on the
years. So
3-year,
I'm
exactly.
really aligned with that. Yeah.
And a 3-year BHAG would be something like colonizing Mars. But the 3-year vivid vision, right? So the 20 or 30-year
Yeah.
BHAG colonizing Mars, that's cool. We understand it. But the 3-year vivid vision, what's your company look like, act like, and feel like 3 years in the
Yeah.
future? How does your
Love
leadership
it.
team connect? How do you use dashboards? What are your meeting rhythms like? How are your employees interacting? What's the
Yeah.
media saying about you? And when you share that 4 or 5 page written description of your company, You get all of your employees aligned, your leadership, your
Yeah.
suppliers, your partners, your lawyers, everyone can see what the entrepreneur can see finally.
Yeah, and I think it's really powerful. Just even putting brain to hand to paper for any leader doing that. I mean,
Yeah.
you know that, I know that. It just changes it, and then you sleep on it. You get up the next day, and you're like, oh, you share it. It becomes more alive. It's pretty. Well, it's powerful. Let's
Yeah,
just say
and
that
well,
it's
that's
powerful.
why it's really taken off, right? We've had,
Yeah,
the governor of Arizona wrote one for the state of
yeah,
Arizona. I've got people
yeah,
in Russia writing vivid visions. So yeah, the
yeah.
concept has really started to align. It's nice.
Yeah. So I really want, any listener listening, if you haven't, had a look at this, it's a great framework. It sits it down. It's actionable. It's easy to do. But once you start it, right, this is the thing that I love is that you're rolling it. It's just similar to our 3-year highly achievable goal for the business. This just actually is that what I call that step before. You can draw the line in the sand,
Yeah.
but then you bring it alive with a story, which is critical. So critical.
Well, it's
Now,
almost like the picture on the front of a jigsaw puzzle box. If you can't
yeah,
see the
that's where I
picture
was
of what
going.
you don't know where all the pieces are going to fit, right? So the vivid vision becomes that vision that everyone can see and they can start to get inspired about, and then they can start seeing what parts of their work are going to make that vivid vision come true. Maybe there's a
Well,
project they're working on that makes one sentence come true.
yeah, and that's really where I wanted you to go next is, we have that vivid vision. Talk about the jigsaw puzzle of business. And can you explain the full
Sure.
concept that aligns to that? Because I think that puts a lot of pieces together. It really aligns actually with, what we're doing with Metronomics and how we're trying to piece all of it together as we're rolling out that 3-year roadmap.
Yeah, it was this weird, I guess, experience that I had one day, and I was working with a CEO, and I said, it's kind of like you need to get all the pieces together and put them in the right order. And then I was like, it's kind of like a jigsaw puzzle. So I started to sit down and think
Yeah.
about it. So the picture is the front of the box. And then if your
Yeah.
mom gave you a 5,000 piece jigsaw puzzle and all the pieces
Yeah.
were red, you'd have no idea where to start, right? But you look for
Yes.
the four corners of the jigsaw puzzle first, then you get the four sides of the jigsaw puzzle
Yep.
second, and then you get all the colorful pieces in the middle and you build it out from there. But we always start with the corners and the sides. So for me, the four corners of the jigsaw puzzle are your core purpose, your
Yep.
core values, your BHAG, and your 1-year plan towards the 3-year vivid vision. Because a
Yeah.
3-year plan, again, changes so quickly that you need a 1-year plan and maybe a little bit of rough framework for 3. But those for me are the four corners, and we can talk about each if you'd like. Then we go into the four sides. The first side are all the people systems. So that's the recruiting, interviewing, hiring, onboarding, leadership development, and offboarding of people. Then you have your strategic thinking systems. And there's no such thing as strategic planning. There's strategy and planning. They're very different. It's like sales and marketing are different. Strategy is the what if scenarios, the thinking about the business long term, the thinking about the threats, the opportunities, looking at what the competitors are doing and not making any decisions, but just having a lens that's usually 1 to 3 or 5 years out to think about your business in a slightly different way. The third side is all the meeting rhythms. So that's your annual meeting, your quarterly meetings, your financial reviews, your L10s, your one-on-one coaching, your daily huddles, any of the meetings that you need to actually run the business. And then the last side of the puzzle is all your financial systems. So it's your cash flow, your budgets, your P&L, your balance sheet, any of your metrics and dashboards. And that becomes the fourth side of the puzzle. All the cool, colorful parts are the culture systems, any of the systems to actually turn your business
Yeah.
into a little bit more than a business, a little bit less than a religion. And so I think of every business like that jigsaw puzzle, but I make sure that we start with the corners, the foundational parts first.
Yeah. And it's so like one of the reasons why it resonates with, myself having built the businesses without some of these frameworks and, all the different CEOs we work with and leaders that are, putting the pieces together. Right. Because even in Metronomics, there's 7 systems, right?
Yeah.
And there are pieces in there. And the 3 HAG is the critical point, that 3-year highly achievable goal. So if we can paint that picture, be really clear on what's in the middle, then we actually work on either side of it. That's why I love the jigsaw puzzle analysis because we're working on all sides of it in your description to actually bring it alive, to actually make
Well,
it happen.
The dangerous part for many entrepreneurs is they have attention deficit disorder, which is actually a superpower,
Yes.
right? It is a strength
Yes.
because they see everything
Yes.
that's happening with the customers, suppliers, they see all the opportunities. But the problem often is that they get excited about the big shiny object. So
Yeah.
if I was building a home, they don't want to worry about the foundation. They don't want to worry about all the landscape. They don't want to worry about all
Yeah.
the architectural. They don't want to worry about the wall. They want to put the stove in and the fancy cabinets and the beautiful flooring. I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, we haven't even got the electrical done yet. Yeah, but let's put in the Sub-Zero fridge and the Wolf stove. It's like, we'll get to the
Yeah.
Sub-Zero fridge. We'll put in the beautiful flooring later. We'll do but we can't paint the house before we put in the plumbing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
in
No.
building your business, they always want to put in the cool stuff, but they don't have a strong base of core values. They don't have
Yeah.
a strong, right?
Yeah, that foundation is critical, right? It's critical. Our cultural systems lined up with cohesive and people, right? So I love
Well,
how that
one of
lines
the
up well.
one of the very first things I did at 1-800 Got Junk in the first 2 or 3 weeks that I was there, and everybody thought I was crazy. Most of the leadership team thought we were going to go bankrupt because of this decision, raised our prices by 40%.
Right.
Because Brian wasn't making money, the company wasn't making money, our franchisees weren't making money, the people in the trucks weren't making money, everyone in the call center is being paid minimum wage. I'm like, we're screwed. Like, so
Yeah.
we're either going to go bankrupt because we're not making any money, or we're going to go bankrupt because we're going to try to make some money. But that was a
Yeah.
foundational building
You
block,
gotta
right? We
do
were
it.
going to be
Gotta do
you had
it.
to be the Starbucks of junk removal, not the Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah. And we like in our world around that, that's the cash system, right? If cash isn't flowing, like we're just doing a lot of nice things that is
Yeah.
really gonna burn ourselves out and not get to where we need to go. And we have to figure that out. So
I used to laugh at
love
Amazon
that.
in the early days. Amazon in the early days used to say that they were losing money on every book, but they were going to make it up on volume. I'm like, no, that math
Doesn't
doesn't
line up.
work.
They definitely figured it out though. Their
Yeah.
flywheel definitely working. So let's talk a little bit about the CEO-COO relationship. And you're well known for the CEO Alliance that I mentioned earlier. Like it just has changed worlds for COOs, lining up with others, understanding the role, the partnership, all that good things. Like let's start simply.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the COO Alliance first. And then I want to go like talking about, hiring a COO or moving, designing that into
Sure.
your organization and just walking through those steps.
Okay. So one of the things that I didn't anticipate was how lonely COOs were. I knew
Mhm.
the entrepreneurs were lonely. And when entrepreneurs join EO or YPO or Vistage or Tech or McKay Forums, like when an entrepreneur joins an entrepreneurial group, they can breathe. They feel like
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
they're understood. They have a
Yeah.
network that they can share and be vulnerable with. Well,
Yeah.
the COO never had that because they can't tell the entrepreneur how they're really feeling. They can't tell their team how they're feeling. They can't go to the board and go, I'm scared and don't know, right?
Yeah.
So they needed a peer group. And it's almost like a guy showing up at a baby shower or a woman showing up at a bachelor party. It's kind of cool, but you don't really fit,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
the COOs don't fit in the entrepreneurial mastermind communities. They don't fit at
Yeah.
entrepreneur conferences. They feel like the
Yeah.
odd duck.
Yes.
So when we started the organization, it really wasn't me to teach them. It was for me to surround them with other COOs from all over the world. We've got members from 17 countries. 40% of our members are women.
Yeah. Amazing.
Average size companies around 34 million. And we're just helping them shed the imposter syndrome, gain the confidence, get the
Yeah.
connections, and get the skill sets on scaling their organization. So that's the purpose of it all.
Yeah.
In
And
terms of looking for one,
yeah.
the first, go ahead.
I was going to say, yeah, if you can talk about like the right time and all that stuff, right? Because if you're someone listening in, you're like,
Yeah.
oh, I don't have one of
So
those.
I've noticed that many entrepreneurs start to realize that they don't have time to grow their people. They don't
Yeah.
have time to work in the areas of the business that they're good at and that they love to do and that feed them with energy. And they're getting drained being busy and working on the stuff that they hate. So they can leverage that by getting someone else who loves those things to take it so that they can actually work on stuff that fuels them. That momentum starts to create momentum. That divide and conquer starts to allow us to do one, 1 + 1 = 7. So
Yes.
there's a huge leverage that comes off of that. The mistake that I see many companies make is they put a COO in place and it's really a director of operations with a big title, or it's a vice
Right.
president operations with a big title.
Yeah.
A true C-level person is probably making 250 to 450,000 a year. If
Yeah.
they're in the 150 to 250 range, they're probably a VP. If they're in the 100 to 180 range, they're probably a director. A true COO comes into your company and shows you what has to happen, probably has a level of autonomy day one that they can take the role and run with it. They don't need you to delegate projects to them. They already know what needs to get worked on. They understand P&Ls, they understand budgets, they understand cash flow, they understand decision-making on metrics. They also show up with probably people and partners that have worked with them in the past that can get plugged into your company. And they have a level of strategic insight that they can actually provide a lens into the organization that you maybe didn't have before. That's a true C-level person.
Yes.
The other thing I realized recently is if you're telling the person what to do, it's a director. If you're making decisions together, it's a VP. And if they're showing you what needs to get done, that's a true C-level, whether it's a CFO, PMO, et cetera, right?
Do you have like a guidance for entrepreneurs, CEOs in their business? Like when's the right time to hire one? Put one in place.
Well, the right time is when you don't have time to grow your people and you don't have time to work on the parts of the business that you don't have time for. I talked to a CEO recently that I was coaching, and they said, "Look, I don't want to spend $240,000 on a VP of operations." And I said, "Well, you're not spending $240,000 tomorrow. It's $20,000 a month for 12 months. It's actually only $10,000 per payroll. So can you find something for them to work on for 1 week for $5,000 that they can generate 5,000? Oh, for sure. Well, and if they're doing some stuff for you, could you generate 5,000 in gross margin? Oh, easily. Well, then you figured out the $240,000 game.
Yeah.
So it just is plugging the key people into the organization.
And so I'm just going to be really like brutal and ask you the question again. When's the right time again to hire a CEO, COO? Because I want you to say it again, because we know this, CEOs don't hear this, right? When's the right time?
Well, let me start with something before that. If you don't have an executive assistant, you are one.
Yes.
And you know Jack Daly. That's a Jack Daly quote, if there ever was one. I always try to give credit where credit is due. But anyone who's listening, if you're thinking of hiring a COO and you don't have an executive assistant, hire an EA first. Get all the administrivia off your plate first. And then take a look at all the stuff that you do work on and figure out the stuff that drains you and you're not good at, and hire a COO to do those things. The time to hire them is now. But the key is to make sure that you put in place the core projects for them to work on that will drive enough incremental gross margin very quickly so that they get a 3 to 4x return on their base. But if you're paying them, $10,000 per payroll period, or $10,000 per payroll period, try to find a way for them to generate 20 or 30,000. That's pretty easy to do if you keep them focused on their big thing.
And the reason I was sort of being a little facetious and pushy on that is because one of the biggest things, like if you have a coach, the coach is going to be there, like getting you off of those things. But if you don't have a coach, it goes right to the very basic side of, let's start with an EA. Let's get all the administrative. Then, okay, you got that. Then we're going to the next step. And it aligns with your growth plans. I loved how you broke it down, per month, per payroll, per week, because we need to be thinking this way. We know this, the number one thing that blocks a company from growth is, the leadership team. Number one thing. And if we don't have leadership, it's just one person, right? 2 people, 3 people, 4 people, right?
It's also that A players are free. And I've really spent a lot of time in the last couple of years. I mean, interesting, like I was building companies 20 years ago where I knew this intuitively. I was speaking at an event in Dubai recently, and I walked off the stage, 2,500 people at the event that I spoke at. I did the opening keynote at the Mind Valley Future Human event. And I'm 6'3", and I was talking to a guy who's 6'7". And I said, "What do you do for fun?" He's like, "I play beach volleyball." I'm like, "Cool. Do you still play?" He goes, "Yeah, I play pro." I'm like, "Holy shit, like pro beach volleyball, that's the 2-on-2s?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "Okay, if it was me and 5 of my friends from college or high school where I played playing against you," he goes, "Dude, we'd beat you every game."
Yeah.
The 2 pro beach volleyball players could beat 6 college players. So I kind of think about it as if I pay 2 people $200,000 each, 2 people at $200,000 each is $400,000 in total comp, or 6 people at $100,000 each is $600,000 in comp. The 2 people at 400 beat the 6 people at 600. So A players are free because you don't need all that extra weight. You don't need, right?
Every time.
But most companies don't have A's. Most companies have B's and think they have A's.
No, 100%. We know it's a 100% A player leadership team. Doesn't matter what size it is. is going to win and move you from this foundation business growth stage to the momentum stage. 100%. They have to be 100% A players, and they must be cohesive. And if we see this day in and day out, it's the number one thing on the critical path that holds companies back from growing. And so when you think about that in the world that,
I'm glad you also kind of pointed out that they have to be the A player and cohesive, because I only hire people that are the right culture fit, right? They have to have the culture fit and the skill set. I've noticed a lot of companies go out and they'll hire someone that knows how to do something, but they've never done it before. So as an example for you, do you know how to win a gold medal in skiing?
Yes. Yeah, of course we do.
Be faster than everybody else.
Yes.
Right? But have you ever won a gold medal in skiing? No. So who would I rather have? Someone that knows how to win it. What's that?
Depends at what level.
No, in the Olympics.
Yeah. Joking.
So, but my point is that there's companies out there that are often hiring someone that knows how to do the job but hasn't done it before.
Yeah.
I would rather keep recruiting, pay a little bit more, and hire the person that did it versus a person that knows how to.
Well, and we know, like, part of, our world is growing up the scorecard, and part of the scorecard is the cultural piece. But you can have the core values, but we have to have the core values, all the skills that go with the experience, the competencies. It has to work with the rest of the leaders. We have to be a cohesive leadership team, or we're not going to get there. And, the last piece that I think is really important,
and
what you said.
The core values.
You go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say the last thing that
that's where the core values. That's where
you go.
Go ahead, Jen.
Go. This will be hilarious.
Where I'm going is on the culture fit. The core values are critical because the behavioral traits will be different on a role by role basis. So a salesperson is very gregarious, outgoing. They're winging it. They're shooting from the hip. They don't follow any systems. They're not supposed to. So HR people tend to hate salespeople on the behavioral traits, but they can really mesh on the core values sync.
Absolutely.
So they can really respect people because they live the core values, even though they walk and talk and shake a little bit differently, right? And I think that's was critical. You're not looking for everybody that acts the same. You're looking for everybody who believes the same.
Yeah. And, when we did the research for Metronomics and we did the 3 phases of growth, you cannot get out of the foundational growth phase unless you have the 100% A player cohesive leadership team married up with, and this is why we love the vivid vision, married up with that, what we call the strategy mapped, just mapped. Right. So we see it, when I think about your puzzle pieces, you have to have those two things. You can't gain any momentum unless you have those things. Without those things, you're in the business, right? We're working deep in the business, right? That's why we go back to when do you hire a COO? Yeah, you got to get an EA. And then you're going to go, what else do I need to get off my plate? And what other hat do I need to give up? And so on and so on. Yep. So what about when we think of the COO role and we think of even you mentioned the book earlier, second in command. And we think about, that whole view. If I'm a CEO listening in, I go, okay, I think I need, someone to help me operationally. What's the steps they go through? How do you find them? How do you interview them? What's the best way to onboard them? All of those things, because that's a huge, as they're running, trying to keep the business going, right? What's your best feedback and advice and actionable items for people to be thinking about?
Well, the best way to find a really good second in command or COO for your business is for you as the CEO to understand yourself and your company in depth. You really have to understand what you like to work on as a CEO. You have to understand what drains you of energy, what fills you with energy, the areas of business that you suck at. You have to understand that strategic map and know what needs to get done over the next 12 months so that you can hire somebody who has done it before and they like to do the stuff that you suck at. It's only by really understanding yourself first can you go out and hire the person, because you're hiring your yin and yang. You're hiring that person to be in complete sync with you. If you just go out and someone who would say, oh, Cameron, you've been a COO before. Do you want to be our COO? I literally had a company yesterday here in Scottsdale, Arizona. They're going to do a roll-up of a chain of medicinal kind of psychedelic clinics and therapy clinics. They want me to be their COO. I'm like, I would be a horrible COO for you. I don't get along with the medical industry at all. I'm at a different age and stage. But they're like, yeah, but you've done it before. Yeah, but I did it in a different industry at a different time, matching a different COO with a different set of skills. You're just saying, it's like saying, oh, you've been a wife before. Can you be my wife? Or like, that doesn't make any sense. So
Yeah.
companies have to understand themselves, their skills, their weaknesses, what needs to get done. That's the starting point. Second part is, I believe that the best COOs are already working. It's like, if you're going to go out and recruit great athletes to be on your team, they're not unemployed sitting on the bench working in the garden. Like, they're already playing for another team, or they're on a farm team. Like, you have to go scout them and find them and poach them to come into your organization. So I really use good recruiting agencies to help me source the best talent. And then I run them through my interview process to make sure they have the skills and the behavioral traits to match our organization.
Yeah. And when you think about that relationship, right? So you had very strong relationships in your different roles that you had, different organizations. But if you take, let's take the 1-800 Got Junk. What made that relationship so strong with Brian?
So we had a bit of an unfair advantage. And I speak about this in the book, The Second in Command, and I talk about how to get there. But Brian and I were in an EO forum group for 4.5 years before I started to work with him. So he watched me build Boyd Auto Body. He watched me build Barter Business Exchange and ubarter.com. And he was the best man at my wedding 3 months before I started to work with him. So he was my best friend, and I'd watched him struggle. I'd watched him build, the Rubbish Boys and get it to 2 million. And so we were able to come in right away. He basically had a 4-year interview with me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. And it's really funny because in my second company, my partner at Subservio, we were in the same roundtable for years before we came together to build Subservio up and out. Okay, so we've got the relationship lined up. I love the sharing on the piece of how important that is between the CEO and the COO and the success of that. The onboarding. So if, people are listening in, they're thinking, okay, I think I've got someone who could roll into that position. We've got the functional role designed. Yeah, we hired them. Talk about onboarding and your experience on onboarding a COO.
Yeah, I was just speaking with somebody the other day around this, that I think companies don't onboard properly at all. They practically waterboard the person. Like, they make them join and they throw shit at them and go figure it out.
Yeah.
And I watched a really close friend of mine, a very successful entrepreneur, does around $10, $15 million a year in business, makes about $5 million a year in profit, running his business for 20 years, hired a new COO and handed him about 15 projects. And 6 months later, fired him because he was a disaster. I'm like, dude, this was not the guy's problem. I said, if you're pointing a finger at somebody, there's 3 fingers pointing back at you.
Yeah, this way.
You didn't. So you didn't teach him about the history of the company. You didn't embrace the core values. You didn't make sure that he understood all the business units. So I think if it takes you 3 months to hire someone, it should take you 3 months to onboard them.
Absolutely.
If it's a one day, if it's like grab somebody, put them on the burger line, great. Maybe it's a day of training to flip burgers. But so the training period, the onboarding period should match the interviewing period, is a rough guideline.
Yeah, I love that. I don't know. I think you might know of Brad Giles. He wrote a book called Onboarding. He does onboarding, and then he wrote a book called Onboarding for Managers, and it's a 90-day onboarding. And I love how you just talked about matching it to the amount of time it took to actually identify, interview, hire. And I'm a huge fan of that 90-day onboarding. And I think for a COO, where they're coming in and there's such a critical point, if you know them, that's one thing, right? And the relationship side, but you also have to build the relationship. Like, that's the other piece that is critical. And with any leadership team member, we have to do that.
Well, there's also a lot of danger that a new hire is like dropping a boulder into a pond. They will get to the bottom of the pond. They're going to be successful, right? They'll get to the bottom of the pond, but they're going to cause a lot of ripple effects. And if you don't control the ripple effects, the damage can be worse than the good thing. So what I like to do in the first, I'd call it a 90-day onboarding for a COO or for a senior person. In the first 30 days, they're not allowed to make any decisions. They're not allowed to hire anyone. They're not allowed to fire anyone. They're not allowed to start or initiate any projects. In the first 30 days, they have to read manuals, sit in on training sessions, sit in on sales calls, listen in on customer service calls, get blind CC'd on tons of emails to read what's happening in all the different business areas, sit in on finance meetings, sit in on marketing meetings, go for breakfast, lunch, and dinner or Zoom calls with anyone in the company that manages people, talk to customers, talk to prior employees. In the first 30 days, it's to get immersed in the business. And while they're doing that, scribble down notes of all their ideas. In month 2, go back and stress test all your ideas. Like, oh, I think we should fire Bob. Great. Now go and talk to a bunch of people. You realize you got to handcuff Bob and you got to fire Karen. But in the second month, you're stress testing all your ideas to come up with your short list of projects that in month 3 you can put in place. And you only put in place the projects with the low PETA factor, the low pain in the ass factor, right? The easy wins, not a lot of people, not a lot of time, not a lot of money. And then by putting those projects in place, your people are going to go, wow, that was really easy. Then you can start in second quarter doing the big stuff, hiring the people.
I love it. I love breaking into the chunks. That's really great. That's really great. Now let's go. They're onboarded. They're in. You've worked with them for a while. The company's growing. You're feeling that you're outgrowing the COO. How does that work?
So I actually have that in my book called The Party's Over, right? And my example was I had been Brian's COO from 2 million to 106 million in revenue. Brian and I met one morning for breakfast and you know, I ordered my eggs Benedict and he ordered a grapefruit. I'm like, what? Grapefruit? You've never ordered grapefruit in your life. What are you doing? You're firing me? And he goes, I'm sorry, it's over. And I knew it was over. I knew for weeks it was over because I was bumping into my ceiling of complexity. I wasn't having fun. I was stressed. I was just outside of, like, we had 3,000 employees, 13 operating P&Ls, operating in 4 countries, 330 cities. They needed the next person. And as he put it, you were the right guy to get us from 1 million to 100 million, but you're the wrong guy to take us from 100 million to the billion. And so it took them 12 months to find my replacement. They brought in the former president of Starbucks USA. And Lonnie came in and looked around and said, what a cute little company, right? For her, it was all small and cute. And for me, I'm like, it's so big. So you just have to, when you have doubt, you have no doubt, right? That's one of my mentors, Rob Hunt, had always said that. When you have doubt, you have no doubt. When you know the person isn't the right fit or they don't have the skills. And I believe that a senior manager can only stay in that role for 2 doubles of revenue. The third double is too substantially different. So if you're 2 million, when you go to 4, they can do it. At 8, they can do it. 16 is tough. I'm lucky because at least I'd built other companies before. So I probably came in way below my pay grade. But if you're coming in,
and worked your way. I love that because we know when we're growing companies, we're trying to keep the whole team keeping up with the growth of the organization. It's like it gets to a point where either you love that next step that you take or you don't. And you go back and you do it again, right? We see that over and over. If you could give one piece of advice to CEOs who are growing, scaling, they're going from chaotic, they're probably living it right now. They're on the verge to going from chaos to clarity. What would that piece of advice be?
Focus on the critical few things versus the important many.
And what's the best way?
To the basics. Well,
what's the best way to get that?
Strip it back to the basics. What are the basic things that'll drive revenue? What are the basic things that'll increase gross margin? What are the basic things that'll make our employees happier? What are the basic things that'll make our customers happier that don't require a lot of people, time, and energy? Do those things and then get good at saying no to all the busy stuff for now. The other one is that there's not a single problem in your company that exists that writing a check can't solve. So if you focus on getting more revenue and getting more gross margin, you can buy your way out of any problem. But often we get sucked into the make the process better, make the widget better, make the SOPs better. None of that drives revenue and gross margin.
No. So, okay, you've had an incredible leadership journey. Like, it's been so fun talking to you and just, it's been a while. I think the last time I saw you was, January 2020. In person,
crazy,
right? We were at Abundance. I think we were at Abundance 360, if you can believe it, right? In LA.
Peter Diamandis event.
Yes. What book, what habit, what practice has had the biggest impact on you lately? Well, in your leadership journey lately?
I'm actually going to go back to since then because it wasn't necessarily the one that had impacted me all along, but it ties back into what I was just talking about, back to the basics. It's a book by Ken Segall called Insanely Simple. And it's about the 10 simplicity. It's about the 10 simplicity systems that was used by Apple and by Steve Jobs to scale this incredible. It's like the simplicity of thought, the simplicity of design, the simplicity of action. Like everything was back to the very core basics. And it's why when you go to their website, it just works. They don't need explanation for all the things. They've chosen the right exact words. It just all works. And I think that's been a real profound impact on my business and business thinking is it's okay to actually go back to those core, basic,
Yes.
simple things
Yeah.
instead of overcomplicating. Business is not that hard.
No. I have two more questions for you.
Yeah.
One is, maybe this will sound like a weird question, but it goes back to a little bit of the podcast we're on. But what does tip top mean to you when it comes to building a business and life? What does the word tip top mean?
I think there would be two things. One, it feels like a bit of a metronome tip top.
Yeah.
Tip top. Just get in that rhythm, like stay in the
Yeah.
rhythm. It's kind
Yeah.
of how you ski moguls. You just get in and you get like there'd be a bit of that. And then I think the other one is there's probably a deciding on what tip top is, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yes.
because it can always get more perfect. You can always polish
Yeah.
the stone until it's more perfect. But at what point so I call it minimum viable everything, right? Like get
Yes.
it done and out the door because momentum creates momentum. I don't need perfect. So I guess that's what I would be, is defining tip top. And
Okay.
then
I love that. Yeah, that's why I
you're
ask
gonna
people
see
that all the
moguls in
time.
November and you're gonna be laughing to yourself.
1, 2, 1, 2, tip top, tip top, tip top. It's gonna be awesome. That's so funny because that's, a little bit of play on the tip top of the metronome, but it's also the tip top of where you're going. So I think that was a great
Yeah.
answer. Where can people connect with you? Where can they find out more info? If it's a COO listening in, if it's a CEO listening in,
Yeah.
what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Easiest place to go is my core website. It's CameronHerold.com and it's Herold. So CameronHerold.com. It has links to my Invest in Your Leaders, links to the COO Alliance, all of my books, my Second in Command podcast. It's all there.
Love it. Thank you for being here. I love the definition of how defined you are around the insights with CEOs and COOs, right? So we can grow stronger together. I know that, it's had a huge impact on me and my own COO. So I love that. And if you haven't read Vivid Vision or The Second in Command, that goes for everyone. Grab a copy because it's a hugely impactful read. Thank you for being here. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And wherever you're listening, thanks for being here.
Shannon, thank you.
If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe to Tip Top Grow Your Business with Metronomics, wherever you listen to podcasts. I'm Shannon Susko. And remember, clarity creates confidence and confidence compounds growth. See you next time.